All right. So, sorry we're a little bit late. We're going to call this meeting of the Town of Rising Sun Planning and Zoning Board to order. Going to call the roll. I'm Chairperson Alan Altenreed. Dave Warnick, Vice Chairman. Will Smith. Jim Boyd. Grab your check. And Commissioner Stephen Lawton, our ex officio member.
They forgot you.
See if I'm not sitting in your seat now.
I guess I can go home.
One of the things I'd first like to say is everybody, if you would please put your cell phones on silent or turn them off. I want to mention that we just came from an executive session, seek legal advice to help us with the case tonight. Also, we have in attendance County Attorney Jay Gullo, and Calvin Bonenberger will be up shortly. Do we have any minutes from the last meetings to approve?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Before we get started tonight with our case presentation, our case tonight is Ace Hardware, case PDZ 2012-03. We want to read a statement in lieu of the recent events that have taken place in Connecticut, small town which pretty much resembles our own small town, and I think we all are affected by it, just like if it would have happened here. So, Vice Chair Dave, you want to read our opening statement, please?
Yeah, I'd like to read a brief statement in light of the recent tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut. We are shocked and saddened by the events that transpired at Sandy Hook Elementary on Friday morning. Before we are planning and zoning commissioners, we are parents, each and every one of us. Some of us have children in the very age range of the young victims and can't fathom the loss that these parents must be feeling in this time that is supposed to be joyful and festive. However, in our role as planning and zoning commissioners, no matter where we may fall on the issue of gun control or personal responsibility, we must put those feelings aside and review this case for the technical merits of the case. This may include such discussions as distance from schools and other such facilities, but it will be discussed in a manner that is fair and respectful to the applicant. We will be deciding on the application tonight from a zoning perspective. Our focus will be primarily around ensuring that the application is appropriate in the current zoning and that the appropriate conditions are applied to this application. The final say of the applicant's ability to sell firearms, what firearms they can sell, and who they can sell them to falls to the Maryland State Police and the US ATF. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Another thing I want to say tonight before we get case presentation up here, we will have public comment tonight. I know the emotions are pretty high and everybody's on edge, so as we get to that point tonight, regardless of your point of view on this, let's try to be civil, professional, and courteous to each other. It is only a week till Christmas. Let's not forget that as we move forward with this tonight. So at this time, I'd like to ask whoever's here from Ace Hardware to come forward, state your names, your affiliation, and present your case, please.
Good evening. My name is William Riddle. I'm an attorney in Elkton, Maryland, and I'm here on behalf of Ace Hardware. I also have with us the owner of Ace Hardware, Charles Spizzato, as well as the manager of the store here in Rising Sun, Mike Saunders. And they're here to answer any questions that you may have, any questions that I, of course, can't answer. First, in regards to the presentation, I would submit that I know we're here on a special exception, but my first part of the presentation would be that I don't believe that a special exception is what's necessary here, although that's what we're here for. And what occurred was when the ATF and the agents had inspected the facility and the premises to make sure they were in compliance with everything that was necessary to be able to sell firearms, one of the only essentially hurdle left, because they were approved on everything, was to receive a letter from the town stating that it was allowed in the central commercial district for zoning. And when Mike Saunders came to the town asking for that letter, he was recommended to file the special exception. But I would submit that what they're asking for is a permitted use. And the reason I say that, And I'll go forward and present for the special exception, but I would like to just say that under your zoning ordinance, under Part 3, under permissible uses, when you look at Section 12.515, it talks about that the presumption established by the zoning ordinance is that all legitimate uses of land in the town are provided for within at least one zoning district in the town's planning jurisdiction. Because the list of permissible uses set forth in the table of permissible uses cannot be all-inclusive, those uses that are listed shall be interpreted liberally to include other uses that have similar impacts to the listed use. And I then looked at your chart to go through essentially the uses that were permitted in a commercial zone as Ace Hardware is located. And I noted that essentially the retail sale, which is what they do, essentially it's retail sale of sporting goods, essentially any type of tools, any type of home improvement that you may need, landscaping, whatever may be necessary. It's retail sales is what they're doing. And I noted that, and it's correct, the zoning ordinance can't account for every item, but if you see it's permitted for their, one of the things was on page 26 under 2.210, high volume traffic generation, building material and supply, boat sales, farm implements, storage and sales, feed, grain, storage sales, heavy equipment sales and service. And I think we almost fall under that with what they're doing, and that's a permitted use, that's permitted. And then you have other shopping areas such as operations designed for plumbing, mechanical contractors, that type of equipment. Again, a permitted use in this commercial district. So first I would say that I believe that it's a permitted use, and they should be allowed to do it as it's retail sales. And it's simply retail sales of another product or another item, which they're already doing at this time. And I think it falls under your zoning ordinance as A, being a permitted use, or B, permitted with conditions. So first I would say that I don't believe a special exception is necessary. I think that's where you should find that it's not necessary when it's retail sales of just another product. I understand that it's firearms, and there's always concern in that respect, but I would say that it's to look at it from a pure zoning position, it is another retail sale in a district where it should occur. I also looked at special exceptions, and special exceptions, you guys hear more than I present them probably, but that usually occurs when you're going to do a salon or a barber shop in your home. Well, why do you do that? Because the home's residential, so it's not, it wouldn't allow for that type of a business to occur at all whatsoever, so you have to ask for a special exception. In this situation, we have the central commercial district where it's located is doing retail sales, and that's exactly what it's doing now. Retail sales is just another product. I think that is an example of what I'd show you, of what I demonstrate to you would be why a special exception is not appropriate. It should be a permitted use. I also would say that in the, looking outside a little bit in the county, we had contacted the Cecil County government and Cliff Houston, the zoning administrator, and he had written to Ace Hardware and simply said that even under the county's zoning, when it's a retail zone such as that, a commercial zone, that retail sales are permitted use, and that the county does not have regulations regarding the sale of firearms or the sales occur in a zoning district that allows retail sales as a permitted use. So I would ask you to look outside even the town's zoning, but look at the county and how it's similarly situated in that respect in regards to the sales, how the county does not require special exceptions, but permits, it's a permitted use when the zoning district allows retail sales, which is what we have here. Thank you for that part of the presentation. Ace Hardware, as you know, is a store right down the street. It's about 11,000 square foot building, and it does retail sales of various items. Probably all of you have been in there. What we're asking for is to be able to sell hunting equipment. That could be fishing, and can include fishing poles, fishing lures, as well as archery targets, archery equipment. But the main thing that I know that keeps being brought up is firearms as well. And firearms are regulated, and I'm glad to see that Maryland, in presenting this, Maryland's one of the most heavily regulated states in regards to firearms and what you would need to do to be able to A, sell firearms, and B, purchase firearms. So I think that's important in considering the zoning situation. Again, we're in a central commercial district, and I would say to you that I think that this is allowed in that type of a district. If you look at the setup that Ace Hardware has provided, the sales would occur in the back of the store, all the way essentially on the back wall area. In order to sell these items, we have to comply with all state and federal regulations. Anyone selling them, so the employees would go through the necessary training courses through the state of Maryland. There has to be training in order for someone to purchase, let's say, a handgun. They have to go through certain training. All of the employees will go through that training, so they're familiar in the use of the firearms and sale of those firearms. They would have that training. Two, in regards to displays, displays, of course, would be back at the back of the store, away, so it's not easy access for any customers. There'd be someone there all the time. Number two is storage-wise, in the evenings or during non-business hours, there's a safe that they're going to be stored in. And essentially, there would be compliance with all state and federal regulations in regards to the storing of those firearms at any time when the store is not in business or not open. And even when it is open, of course, we would be complying with any storage of those firearms. But what we're asking for is for you to allow either by permissive use, by a letter, simply what we're asking for, that we can provide the ATF that would allow for the firearm sales, or B, a special exception that would allow for the firearm sales. Any questions? If there's anything in addition that Mr. Susato or Mr. Saunders would like to say on behalf of the
Well, yes, if I may, Chairman and Board of Commissioners, thank you for taking time this evening to hear us. As the county has grown, I don't know if we have met before or not, but I'm a father of 5. And I have raised those children from the baby was 3 years old until now he's 19 and a half. I raised him as a single parent. So there's nothing in this world that means more to me than children. I got a unique view, being a father, raising those children, protecting 5 of them. You know, if you spent 10 minutes each night tucking them into bed, you had an hour was going before you could get to the last one. And it's very difficult to give them the time that they needed. I made the sacrifice to do that. If there was anything I could do in this world to bring any one of those children back that we lost last week, I would achieve to it. And if I thought that what we were doing here would endanger and cause a situation like that, there's no way I would be standing here requesting your permission. It seems like, and I mentioned it earlier, the bad guys always seem a way to come up with firearms. It's the good people that follow the rules and go through the training and follow the regulations that have the problem. We're going to take a very proactive role in offering seminars, safety seminars and classes, and working with our people here in Rising Sun. We're not a gun store selling hardware. We're a retail hardware or department store or whatever you want to call us. It's going to have a little section of guns. Or firearms. One of the questions he asked was for a business plan and some other. I don't have a business plan to present to you because we're going to start small and just see how it goes. Are we going to bring in hunting shotguns, things like that? Yeah, I know we're going to do that. What else? We're not sure what we're going to follow it. No different than I do with the other products that we carry. And by the way, we're a family business. I happen to be the president, but it's owned by our family members, mine being one of them. And like if you come in and say, hi, I'd like you to carry widgets, and after a number of people come in asking for that particular type of widget, we determine and get it in stock. And that's how we'll handle our other items. We've had ammunition for some time, and that has been very well received by the community. After last week's episode, we did have one customer that came in, was quite upset that we were selling ammunition. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to apologize in person, But I understand that, it's very emotional. I mean, you know, my mother's 91 years old, she'll be 92 December 31st, she was in the hospital at the time, and she just, tears just ran from her eyes. The hardship that poor parents must have suffered and are suffering today, and it's supposed to be joy this morning. As far as regulations, I'll just show you one of the, there are plenty of regulations out there to make sure that we do things right. We met with the ATF inspector or investigator up at the store. He went through the store. He reviewed where things would be kept. We passed those, the store passed the requirements needed. He was impressed with it, he liked it. And I request that you please consider our application. We could move 1,000 feet down the street and be in the county and obtain this license. When the store used to be the Acme and it closed up for about a year, the town fathers came to me as the property owner and said, hey, we gotta do something. We don't want a vacant store, and the largest store in the town to be vacant. I've obliged them. We've had a wonderful working relationship ever since, and we'd like to continue that. And we'd like your support here. And I couldn't agree more with what you had, David. I agree 100% with you. So if you please give us a positive consideration on this, we would appreciate it. We're going to be employing extra people. So we will be putting a few new jobs and a few new positions in as a result of this. And we employ locally. You know, so hopefully it will be a positive impact for the town and our community. On that note, thank you for the time that you've given me. Any questions?
Well, at this time, I'll open it up to the board. First off, I have a couple of things. One, can you tell me when your application was submitted, the date your application was submitted to the town?
Well, there wasn't actually an application submitted to the town. There was a request for that the zoning met the requirements.
Can you tell me when you submitted that request?
We could pull up I think we have a copy of the application in our packet.
A copy of the application for special exception doesn't have a date at the bottom of it.
Do you have an approximate, and the reason I'm saying, you know, if there's a timeline to this thing, we, you know, as a good business neighbor, we want to work with you to make sure that applications that have deadlines don't run out.
I believe we started talking about late in October. I believe, just.
But that's not the application.
Oh, no, application.
So, correct, Chairman, the day that we came and talked to the town, or the day that we formally filled this out?
Yeah, the day you submitted the application for the village.
Toward the end of November?
It was in maybe earlier on, because we had to be 2 or 3 weeks before the meeting, and the meeting was scheduled for December 8th originally, or 10th. So, did we have to be 2 weeks before that?
I believe 2 weeks is.
Yeah, we met the requirements for December, what I thought was the 8th, possibly the 10th.
It was actually the 10th.
Okay. So, at least 2 weeks before that.
Okay. But one other thing, you know, I want to say right off the bat, you know, we're all residents here in town, sitting on this board. We also patronize your store. Spent, you know, the years I've lived here, we've had, and we appreciate the fact that you've created job opportunities for people who live local, and some of your faces in there I recognize. You know, so we appreciate that, and we want to work with you. But on the other hand, we don't, and not just because of what just happened, we don't look at any type of firearm as just another product. And I hope you wouldn't either as we go into this discussion, because, you know, it's not another garden tool, or, you know, I'm glad you sell sporting goods. A lot of us, you know, take our children out and engage in those type of events, and it's good to have somebody that close, so we don't have to drive and spend money someplace else, or we, you know, we like you being here in town. We don't have to drive 1,000 feet out into the county someplace else, or to do that type of business. So please be, you know up front that this board is here to work with you, and sort out a very complicated matter, complicated even worse by the events of last weekend. And we empathize with you. We're all parents, and some of us grandparents. And it's not just that because of what just happened, this scrutiny, we would have had at any time over this, because we don't look at this as just another product there. And we want to make sure that your plan, and that's part of what we're going to be asking tonight, is your plan, because we feel that we have very sketchy information at this time. And we'll try to give you some of the requests that we have for information, get some information from you. And if we have to, we may have to extend this a little bit, because like I said, we don't look at this as just another product. So with that said, I'll open it up to the members of my board, and there'll be time for public comment, please, so try not to interrupt as people are trying to get the information and the fact finding that we're doing. We will have time for that a little later. So, anyone have anything?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
do you have your federal firearms license now? And if so, what type, or what type have you applied for federal firearms? So there are 9 classifications of federal firearms license.
We did not apply for any explosives. We applied for the lowest standard firearm allowed you to
So
sell.
you got a class 1? Correct.
I believe so.
And it is a.
Now, I could go pull up the app to tell you for sure, but I know we didn't put any explosives or anything unusual.
Is it
They were
your intent-
manufacturing.
Okay, is it your intention to only stay with a class 1?
Yes.
Or do you intend to expand that into any of the other 8 classes?
At this point in time, we have no intention of expanding into anything other than what we applied for. We have a application for gunsmith and to sell, retail sale of firearms. Now, there may be one for selling to police departments. And I'm not sure whether that's with the standard FFL or not. But we will most likely investigate that in the future to see if we're able to sell to police departments around the state. We'd like to work
Just getting on
some.
your bid list.
Yeah, and we also feel it's good anytime we can bring officers of the law into our store. We always encourage that for a whole lots of reasons.
Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we go to questions from the panel here, this application originally came to our town administrator, and he referred it to us, but he has some background information on how we got to tonight. If I could ask you to ask him to present that to us.
The town administrator present that information first, please. Background of this application.
First of all, the advertisement was placed in the newspaper as required 14 days in advance, and with the second advertisement appearing no less than 7 days prior to the scheduled hearing. I would concur that the original application probably came in at the beginning of November, around there, in order to make the 14 days. Because we were originally scheduled to meet on December 10th, and then we had some last minute attendance issues, so we had to move it to the 18th. So the applicant, I would agree, the application came in probably at the beginning of November. In my case review here, for the benefit of the general public here, the project summary, the applicant is operating roughly an 11,000 square foot building as a retail hardware store. The applicant proposes to expand the retail business to include the sale of firearms, hunting equipment, and ammunition. You have in your case package the original application for zoning and certificate of occupancy, the meeting notice, property record, the town zoning map, a mapping image of the location of the building in the town, a distance image from the middle school, a floor plan of the merchandise layout. The staff code review and comments, the following comments are pretty much based upon the town's, and this is boilerplate language, the plan, subdivision, planning, zoning, building, code requirements. The item number 1 on the second page, the property is located in the central commercial zoning district. Item number 2, the central commercial district is stated above. The regulations in the central commercial district are intended to promote, protect, and provide for the retail services center of the community and the surrounding regions. The classification of the use, the general activity and/or function of the applicant is one of a retail store as described in Article 23 titled Definitions, which is further defined as stores selling one kind or various kinds of goods as distinct from services, such as, but not limited to, drugstores, grocery stores, department stores, camera shops, bookstores, and record shops. The item number 4, under section 12-515, permissible uses and specific exclusions, provides general language on how to determine if a proposed use is permissible. This section in part states the presumption established by the zoning ordinances that all legitimate uses of land in the town are provided for within at least one zoning district in the town's planning jurisdiction. Because a list of permissible uses set forth in the table of permissible uses cannot be all-inclusive, those uses that are listed shall be interpreted liberally to include other uses that have similar impacts to the listed uses. Subject number 2, notwithstanding subsection 1, all uses that are not listed in the table of permissible uses, even given the liberal interpretation mandated by subsection 1, are prohibited. Nor shall the table of permissible uses be interpreted to allow a use in one zoning district when the use in question is more closely related to another specific use that is permissible in another zoning district. Subnote 3, no building or tract of land shall be devoted to any use other than a use permitted hereinafter in the zoning district in which such building or tract of land shall be located, with the exception of the following. A, uses lawfully existing on the effective date of this ordinance. B, special exceptions recommended by the Planning Commission and approved by the Board of Appeals. So I stop on one note. That's one of the reasons for the suggestion for the special exception, because it's obviously the interpretations that I've made above is that it's even using a liberal interpretation. I did not feel that it was in my purview to just automatically say, go ahead and do it. And I'll elaborate on that more. Accessory uses, section 12-516, accessory uses. The table of permissible uses classifies different principal uses according to their different impacts. Whatever an activity which may or may not be separately listed as a principal use in this table is conducted in conjunction with another principal use, and the former use, A, constitutes only an incidental or unsubstantial part of the total activity that takes place on a lot, or B, is commonly associated with the principal uses and integrally related to it, then the former use may be regarded as accessory to the principal use and may be carried on underneath the umbrella of the permit issued for the principal use. For example, a swimming pool tennis court complex is customarily associated with and integrally related to a residential subdivision or multifamily development and would be regarded as accessory to such principal use. Even though such facilities, if developed apart from a residential development, would require a special exception permit. Item number 6, permissible uses table. Under the table of permissible uses, starting on page 26 and ending on page 35, there are no specific uses listed that are similar to the proposed plan to sell firearms and ammunition listed within this table. I would go on to say that, and this was a struggle that we had internally, yes, it is retail, but you can't make an argument that all retail items are just permitted without at least having conditions applied to them. Our own table of permissible uses lists pet shops, antique shops, places that sell automobile parts, supplies, tires, drugstores, and interestingly, the whole concept of a shopping center is a permitted use with conditions. So they are permitted, but there are conditions applied to them. So in backing up, the reason why we went the route of the special exception is because I did not feel comfortable that it was in the staff's purview to just say, yes, go ahead and do that. There are some retail type things that at least require some type of input from the board to place conditions on them. And then the very fact that it says, again, under item 3, that special exceptions recommended by the planning commission, approved by the Board of Appeals. The other thing I want to back up and remind the board that I always do, is sort of a favor to any applicant. When I advertise for these hearings, I will advertise for any and all special exceptions and/or variances, because sometimes the discussion can go down a route that maybe as a staff review I might have overlooked, and it might require some type of variance or a special exception on it. And so it sort of gives it sort of creates sort of an umbrella for an application to be more easily modified through the process, because we let everybody know that there could be special exceptions and/or variances. And that's just something that I do to try to help the applicant with the process. The staff observations, as listed in item 6 above, there is no specific or even implied reference to any type of permitted use involving the sale of firearms or ammunition in the zoning code. However, as specified in section 4, subnote 1 above, and as contained in section 12-515 of the town zoning code, there is a presumption set forth in the zoning ordinance that all legitimate uses of land in the town are provided for within at least one zoning district in the town's jurisdiction. D, Ace Hardware is located roughly 723 feet, property line to property line to the Rising Sun Middle School grounds on Pearl Street. C, kids coming and going from school won't pass Ace Hardware on all sides of the property throughout the school year. D, I would suggest a clear business plan showing how many items, guns and ammunition will be sold and what type. How will product be displayed and secured during business hours, and how will it be secured and stored after business hours? E, who will have access to the area, what training might they have, what type of screening of employees, etc. might take place. And then items D and E are the standard boilerplate stuff that I always give the board as the mechanisms in place for considering special exceptions and or variances. So one thing I want to emphasize is that for the most part, the staff is not taking a position for or against. There is a presumption in the zoning code that all legally operating, legal businesses should have a place in one's zoning code and in one's community. But given in the staff's opinion, this type of use and the questions that might be asked, we felt more comfortable to get some direction from the planning commission. If the planning commission feels that there are no conditions that need to be placed, then fine. If the planning commission feels there are conditions that should be applied, the staff feels that that's what this board serves that purpose for.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Administrator, for that advice. One of the things, like I said, that concerns us the most is this does have conditions. In order to come in and sell firearms, just before you even speak to us, you have inspections to be done, federal firearm license. There's a lot of conditions that have to be met. And one of the things we want to establish as a town and as our board is, yes, you are in the central commercial district where such type of an action could take place. We want to make sure that the conditions that are set forth are being met, that we're not being less stringent than any state or federal laws that have to apply are there, and that we also have that in a business type plan that shows what has been met, what criteria outside of ours has been met, what licenses have been either applied for or received, training, and many others that I know the board will have. So those are the kind of things we're looking for as we're talking about conditions. Because, like I said, again, can't stress it enough, this is not just another product, John. It's, many of us, like you said, that are responsible users of this, wind up bearing the burden for the irresponsible. And we want to make sure that we do diligence on that responsibility. And once again, I'd open that up. Yes.
I actually do have a couple questions for you. And if they're too specific, I'd like to hear, down the road more from you. You stated that you would sell shotguns and you would just see how it goes from there. I'm not sure, are you gonna be selling something that's associated with hunting rifles? And what is your idea of a hunting rifle? Specifically, what types of guns? Are you talking long guns, bolt action, pumps? What types of shotguns are you talking about selling? Does it extend outside of that?
At first, what we'll do is we'll meet with our wholesalers, find the most popular of the items in our area that meet the federal and state requirements. As Mr. Rattle stated earlier, Maryland is one of the most conservative states in the country. And of course, we'll be following all of those guidelines, and we have to meet that in order to do business in the state. So it's a crawl until we walk before we run sort of mentality. I hunted for goose and deer and rabbit from a child. I grew up on a farm here in Cecil County, so it wasn't unusual. So that's the kind of items we'll begin with, and follow recommendations from the industry, also the associations will help in that area, and professional consultants.
Okay. I was hoping for something a little bit more specific.
Well, clearly,
So-
we're gonna be looking at bolt and pump. I mean, long guns are, I'm gonna say, the restrictions on long guns, they do nick background checks on those, but those would be,
Those are,
right, but they can't be, remember now, there's no such thing as, you can't get into assault or automatic type situations, they're not allowed in Maryland under regulations. So we'll be dealing with those type of handguns, they're pump
Okay.
and bolt action.
so none of the AR-10, 15, SOLCOMs, those are,
But you can't-
would those ever be on the board for your store?
If they're not allowed to be sold, they're not allowed to be sold. Plain and simple.
They're assault rifles, they're assault weapons that are listed specifically by Maryland State Police, you can't even get them.
Well, you can't, well, not anymore, I think as of today,
Well,
but,
again, Maryland is, again, you can get them, but not Maryland.
correct. Okay. Are you doing two handguns as well? I can't remember the class one.
Yes.
Class one.
They are in class 1, and we haven't determined a range in that area yet. We're gonna get into it small and allow it to grow based on community requests.
And I understand that, I just think that, the perimeters, I think people are very
Well,
nervous.
The safety net we do have is the conservative state regulations. And that is a good safe net for our county, and we're lucky to be in it. We're our state, we're lucky to have a state that's as cautious as they are. So we're not gonna put myself or my family at risk by selling something that's not permitted or is frowned upon. We have a good working relationship with our ATF inspector, investigator, or agent, and he's there, he's given us our cell number, he's willing to come in and meet with us as frequently as we want to educate and help. We'll also be attending seminars. We're going to take this a very serious and safe approach to this. Walmart, I'd like to think that our people are going to be well more educated than that sometimes get employed by the national change and handed a set of keys. Now, that's not to say they're done. I'm not saying they're not.
Right.
I'm just saying that we have a vested interest. You know, we're here and we don't want to see something go wrong in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, our people are gonna be for sure well trained.
Can I ask while you're on that subject, do you currently have employees who have been trained in the sale, storage, and display of firearms, whether it be pistol or rifle currently? Or will you be hiring specially trained
We
salespeople
plan on hiring.
to work with that? And also, could you speak to your plan for how you'd be displaying them, what your security would be during that display, as well as, you know, your plan for after-hours security?
Yeah. We have an after-hours, those of you who, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be telling you exactly where on public record we're gonna sort of that.
Well, you don't.
But we have a
Right.
very safe bunker that they'll go into at nighttime. And during the day, they'll also be locked so that somebody can't come in and try to pull equipment.
Have you found that there's regulation onto the type of display cases, bulletproof glass, shatterproof glass, that is a regulation that has to be met as far as how you store this? Like when you go to, say, Walmart, you can tell they're in specialty cases, tamper-proof and shatterproof.
Well,
Because this seems it's gonna be, you know, even though it's another product, you're gonna be investing for safety and security. There's gonna be probably a substantial investment on your end up front. And we understand that, but, you know, we also wanna be, us as a board and
Sure.
the town residents wanna be rest assured that you've done everything not only to meet the requirements, but have you gone above and beyond, given the circumstances in the past year, not just the past weekend?
Sure.
Because we are a rural area that participates in this. I think we're one of the areas where you can hear gunshots on the weekend when you're not as alarmed as you would be in some other areas, because you know it's hunters up in this area. But we're becoming a large residential community now up here, and quickly getting ready to expand more. And we have to think about that going forward as we're trying to work and keep businesses here in town as others are closing up and leaving. So that's, for myself, that's what I'm looking for. I wanna know, you know, this specialty product, you know, we wanna know that you're doing everything and some extended for security and safety.
I haven't bought our display cases simply because of the expense. I can't take a chance in buying those and end up putting drill bits behind them. So, plus, the insurance policies have a huge deductible. So, financially, I can't afford not to have the best there, because I don't wanna see somebody, I don't wanna get into the wrong hands. Secondly, the financial penalty that would it take just makes it sensible to get the best display cases he gets, and then just can't come in and shatter them and stick them in their thing and run out the door.
Smash and grab.
You know,
Opportunities,
just go like
you know,
that.
and with some of the recent events, you know, locally, you know, we have great concern about that.
Sure.
Like I said, it's not just another product, so. Anyone else? We'll have public comment.
I'm an FFL holder. Some of these questions you're asking, they're not really gonna know the answer, but I actually do have my FFL
Well,
license that I've had for
Are
9
you,
years.
are you an employee of?
No, I'm not associated with them at all.
Right now, this is their opportunity to make their case.
Okay.
And we
I was
will.
just trying to help. I mean, some of your questions,
I appreciate it.
I mean, they're-
These
you know,
gentlemen,
I
you
know.
know, are in business, they're looking to do this, but,
Yeah.
you know, we're not all experts, and during, after a while, we'll open it up, and we appreciate your comment, and
Yeah, because,
any
I mean-
information you can bring to help,
Yeah.
not only us, but the applicant here tonight. Does the
I think
board
it
have anything else?
definitely help you
Yeah, I mean, you know, we do have, the one regulation that we, and I realize that there's a big difference between adult bookstores and gun sales. But, in the adult bookstore section, we basically don't allow any such establishment to be within a certain distance of church properties, school properties, hospitals, as well as within a certain distance of other of the same. And I'm not necessarily trying to compare gun sales to adult bookstores. I think actually in this area they'd be reflected on very differently. But I think the kind of idea of having some distance from, even, you know, take aside what happened Friday. Even before that, I was, you know, considering the, you know, in this day and age, just what back in September, there was an incident at Perry Hall High School. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, that incident was caused by a gun shop being close to a school or something like that. But when WJZ is flying over the town and they've got the camera focused on, you know, children evacuating the school and there's a gun shop right next door, it's a bad image to project. We don't want to project that as a town. Now, you know, you're clearly not right next to the middle school. You're not actually right next to any school for that matter. But I mean, I think that's some of the kinds of things that, you know, that there's some concern with. You know, the distance from the middle school in particular is just a little over 700 feet, about 723 feet. I personally don't see that as a large concern, because again, you shouldn't have, you know, it's not like it's a shooting range or something. I mean, but I know that there is concern in the community about that. I've definitely heard that kind of, you know, again, I haven't, everybody comes to me, I just tell them no comment, it's a case before us, but we, nonetheless, you know, we do get feedback from people when they hear about cases like this coming, and you just have to kind of tell them that you can't talk about it, but nonetheless, you can raise their concerns as part of this, I believe.
So we understand your concerns, and I did look that up, and the federal regulations are within 100 yards of a school, church, things of that nature. So we feel that we meet that and double that essentially. So we feel comfortable with that. But I looked at that exact issue based on what we do, the kind of questions we have, so we feel we meet that standard. I know the concerns are there, whether it's 301 foot or 1,000 feet, you're still gonna have the same concern, but we would be in compliance with federal regulations on that, as well as Maryland regulation.
I'll also add, you know, when I read the packet and when Administrator, I'll say Calvin because I'll mess up his last name, Calvin, pardon me. You know, that the children walked by and, you know, struck me for a second. And then I had to stop and think and say, well, it'd be pretty tough to be in town without children walking by. If you're close enough to be allowed to walk to school. Because that took me back. I didn't think of us as a, you know, as that. But the neat thing about it, our store doesn't look like a gun store. It looks like a hardware store or a firearms store. It looks like a hardware store. So we don't plan on putting pictures of assault rifles out front and saying, hey, look at this and this neat. Or selling the games where the kids run around shooting and, you know, we're not gonna have any of that kind of stuff. So.
Do you currently sell paintball guns and equipment like that?
To the best of my knowledge, only occasionally. I think sometimes when they're on the flyers.
I mean, it is available to us through our warehouse. We don't currently keep them in stock, but we do keep like BBs and the aerosol reloads for paintball guns.
And if Base advertises them, we'll try to get, that's what I think we've had. I think we have had them in the past, but it's not something that people.
Anyone else on the board have anything, any questions or any recommendations?
Security is always an issue. Obviously, you have some type of alarm system on the building. Do you have a closed circuit TV in the facility?
Yes, we do. And we're gonna put an additional one in just for the firearms area. So, once again, I didn't wanna bear that expense yet,
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And you said all of your staff would be trained as certified instructors or whatever it is?
Well, I don't know about certifications of instructors, but they will go through the certified courses.
Courses, right.
Okay. Now, it would be wonderful if one of them ends up, decides they want to go through that step, because like I said earlier, we want to have seminars, and so if we don't have someone on staff, we have to find an organization to partner with that will come in and, you know, have a ladies' night and, you know, maybe different trainings for them, and then, community center of interest, and, you know, people with
The staff that you have, you'll have a specific staff allocated exclusively for the handling of firearms, correct?
You need to do that for your FFL.
Correct.
Yes. You have to
Um,
identify those.
And the staff would be obviously mature adults?
Yeah, they have to be fingerprinted. They go through a 2-week FBI investigation. And I believe through the state, the way it works is you have to get your FFL, and then you apply for the state for the second license. So we haven't gone to that.
No, I understand
So
the
there's a whole
expense.
nother layer
Yes.
that we'll have to go through after the FFL.
Okay.
And to answer, I didn't answer your original question, we do not currently have our FFL. That was part of your, and I dropped the ball on it.
It's okay.
One of the things, well, Calvin, do you think we should at this point entertain the public's comment on this, because we know this is a hot button at this time, and so the applicant, while he is here as manager, if there's questions that our audience has tonight, and thank you for everybody showing up. This is the biggest audience we've ever had for a P and Z meeting.
Ever.
So we appreciate everyone coming out.